Hello and welcome to Breakfast Central on a fresh and brand new working week here, broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria. Je m'appelle Joe Hansen.
Bonjour, bienvenue à Breakfast Central. No, that's not
It's
that.
fine.
You've tried.
I tried, Abby.
Okay.
I'm Olive MOD and very excited to start the week with you. We're counting down to the end of the month. Now, you know what that means. It means salary week. I'm so excited about that.
And it means the next day you get Happy New Month broadcast. Many of them.
What's our broadcast?
Yeah.
Anyway, for the next 3 hours this morning on Breakfast Central, we're looking at some of the biggest stories that have occurred here in Nigeria, some of the biggest stories, even maybe outside the continent. Maybe we might step out, and of course, we'll be reviewing the front pages of the papers where you get to be a chance, or you get to have a chance to call in on the show. You're very welcome.
You're welcome to Breakfast Central. Yes, #1 breakfast television in Nigeria, where people are so free to talk to us. We have engaging intellectual discussions. It's not an inquisition. We're not trying to cut anybody's head. We're just trying to get to the meat of the matter. And if you think we're stopping you, catch it, collect it, and subscribe to GoTV and watch News Central every day.
Every day.
Absolutely.
I was going to make a dry joke when you said if you think we're subbing you. I remember that I have laces here. So if the shoe fits, lace it.
Wow. You're on a roll this morning, well rested and charged for the week.
You think?
Refueled, just
Well,
like
how was
Joe
your
was
weekend,
drinking his
Joe?
coffee.
Joe, good weekend. We missed you on Friday. Good to have you back. We were
Friday
so sad.
was
We were
sad,
crying.
man.
We couldn't,
Wow.
we couldn't
Some
function.
callers even called to say,
People were like,
where's that
Joe?
Like,
If you don't bring Joe back, we're going to turn off the TV.
yeah, we're going to switch to a rival station.
But we're glad to have you
To all
back.
my fans, kudos to
Ofuini Kunduz.
You know what? We're going to behave ourselves today, you guys. Let's start with the conversations that we have this morning, talking about the exorbitant cost, the soaring cost of renting houses in Lagos. If you live in Lagos, you would realize, and if you've tried to move houses within the last 2 years, you'd realize the exorbitant cost of housing. Now, it's not just the rent, it's the service charge, agency fee, the tenancy agreement. In some cases, I was house hunting last year, and what I saw in some cases was that the service charge was higher than the rent, or almost competing with the rent. And when you do the math, in some cases, your service charge is almost as much as half of your rent. So the question is, where are we going to? How can we nip this in the bud? We started conversations here on Breakfast Central. We had Scott, who's a price control activist, to join us on the show to share, the progress that has been made so far and some of the progress that we're looking to see. But gentlemen, Joe, I know you in particular can relate to this. I'm not quite sure because, Wega, he has gotten a house in the Kasongo way.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
not really, he can't relate.
My
to
landlord is pretty chilled, so
shout out
to Dr. Thomas. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I should look for a landlord who's a doctor.
Please let me give shout out to my landlord so that they will not increase my house rent,
Hopefully.
please. Shout out to my landlord and to my agents. I'm using this to beg you. As much as I'm talking about this, please don't increase rent. Please help.
Whether we like it or not, Lagos, not just Lagos, we hear, last time I did the drawing board here, we got comments on X and all that. In short, the X was filled with a lot of comments. People were saying, why are you focused only in Lagos? Abuja, we're feeling the heat as well. The prices have gone up in Abuja. Someone also sent a message on X and said, even in the southeast, it's a problem. So it's starting to be a pandemic, let me put it that way. Recently, I'm also, I know someone who's house hunting, so we're trying to do it together. And you find out that, like Olive, you just rightly said, the service charge is something else. Now you're paying a percentage on every house. Let's say it this way. Gone are the days you find a 2-bedroom, in quotes, flats, and you see it for about, depending on the area, a certain price. But now it's like all landlords had a meeting and they said, listen, it doesn't matter whatever area it is, as long as it's a 2-bedroom flat, it must start counting from
Millions.
3 million, 2.8 million, 3 million, 3.5, and so on. And you wonder why. Middle class is starting to shrink.
Yes, the middle class.
It's starting to shrink. And for those who are in the middle class, Keda, all of us, I want to believe so, we're starting to really find it very hard to survive. And I think it's
But I mean, I would look at a different perspective.
Okay.
Landlords are also Nigerians. Telco, I mean, it's on this set that we discuss the increase in telco, the increase in transportation, the increase in in air tickets and everything. These guys use Nigerian markets. You might argue that they built their houses so many years ago, and they're not buying fresh cement and all of that, but the economy affects them too. They go to the same markets we all go to. So are we being fair that the inflation shouldn't have a sort of reflection on their rent? Some of these landlords, their only sole means of survival in
and I agree with Benga,
retirement,
right? In the sense that I agree completely that we're all shopping from the same market, we're all feeling the impact of inflation, but there's also a certain level. I think that whilst it's understandable that in some cases they have to make an increase, but the increase has to be fair. Now, what is fair? I'll give you an example. I have a friend whose rent for an apartment, I don't want to give specifics, on the island was 6 million. And last year, the rent was increased to 12 million.
That's too much.
How do you make an increment like that?
So that's why you have the protest. That's why you have the protest. That's
and
why
now she's moving out.
That's why people are coming out to protest, because it's 100% increase. A family member of mine was paying 1.5, and all of a sudden she got a letter from the landlord saying, listen, starting from the end of this year, which happens to fall in November, the rent is going to be increased to 3 million. And I'm why is he adding 1.5 on it? And for some of them, in case you do not know, they will tell you that because it's a new contract and a new rent, you also have to now pay what they call, what's that charge you pay in case you spoil it? You now have to pay.
And how many of them did they never refund your caution?
I don't understand.
Or you even leave the house better than you met.
Do you understand?
So they never really refund your caution. And
no, they don't.
They hardly ever.
They don't.
I mean, I'm not saying that, okay, I wouldn't say that they don't, but they hardly. In the cases that I've seen, they'll tell you, oh, caution fee. I feel like if you want to add to the rent with your full chest. Stop using excuses of caution fee, this fee, that fee, agency, tenants. Do you know that in some cases there are people that, some people will tell you that, you know what, don't pay 10%, pay 5% for the legal agreement. So I think that Nigeria is, it's not the best and it's biting hard on everyone, but we can be considerate about it.
We have a problem. We have a problem, guys, and I think we need to, if we can do this on Breakfast Central, we'll do this for the culture and for the people. I think we might need a segment here on the show, if my colleagues agree, where we can really focus on rent issues. And I think we need to drum it into the ears of those in power that, listen, it's about time. Good enough, the federal government had come out yesterday concerning the tax, you know, the new tax, you know, entire thing they're putting together. They said they're going to remove taxation from rent. So people will no longer have to pay, you know, landowners, they're reviewing it, so on and so forth. This would also give room for people. But how is that going to trickle down? I have a problem with the middlemen. Those you call agents. Everybody's an agent now. How far you define two bed ideal? You know, everybody's telling you come, and you're wondering. Sorry, excuse me. When did you start agency work? Say, don't worry now.
Problem with
it's
them,
hustle.
you know, doing it because it's
no, because they also add to the overall.
They also add to the overall.
Why can't I deal with the landlord?
But they're business even outside Nigeria. There are people whose work, you know.
But they're certified, so that's another thing.
Okay.
The ones you have are not certified. And there's rumor that these same agents are the ones who speak to Olive, who owns a house at Como. This your 2-bedroom is too cheap. Take it up to 3 million. Yeah. And all of a sudden you.
And then they even charge you fees for inspecting.
Yes. In all fairness, though, my own agent was able to negotiate a discount for me. Shout out to Chris. He was one that was able to speak to the landlord to say, you know what, this is her budget. You know, can we try to make a discount for her? So that's.
I didn't even know that Chris Brown is now into agency.
Let's take a look at this one. Oh my goodness.
The same Chris Brown of Rihanna fame.
Even to the governor's office that they should just help us arrange this thing very well, because the rate that all these agents are increasing all this house rent, house agreement and commission is getting out of hand. When house is 800,000, agreement and commission must be 40, which is 80,000.
The commission agreement of 18 had several experiences, you know, to talk about it. It's alarming, it's killing people. Everything is not about government, and individual thing now, the way I see it. So it only happened to me too. I wanted to get an apartment at Jojo Elegba, the apartment 2-bedroom flat with 3 toilets, quite nice. It's going for ₦1 million. Then the agent in charge told me agreement and commission damages ₦1 million. Total package of ₦2 million. That's killing. That is not it at all.
When it comes to my estate, in our Soya estate, that's where I live. So our own ESCO member invite agents for our estates. They have meeting with them, collaborate with them, calling house owners to increase their rents. Like my owners from ₦2 million to ₦3 million right now, from 2M to ₦3 million.
There's difference between agents and the rector. You understand? It's this agent that we don't want. I know director is an occupation, you are trained for it, and you are certified, and you have your office. But funny enough, most of these guys, now them be director, but now they go they employ agents, make them they help them, they do nonsense. So it's the agents we don't want. We don't want agents.
Wow.
Did you hear that the estate, the ESCO members and all that, the people in the estate had meetings with the agents, and then the agents now told them, okay, listen, let's increase the rent. It is pathetic. I don't know how, like Benga just said off camera, the first rent is a problem. But I'm thinking now it's continuity.
Yeah,
How
because
you're able
every
to-
year,
every
with the way
year.
they're going, they will probably add something. And the way they're adding, I mean, the increases are exponential, 100% increase. How do you want people to go?
Too much.
Do you think salaries are increasing? I mean,
It's too
cost
much.
of living has skyrocketed. How do you survive?
So just to add to that, right? I think that it's important that we continue to highlight these conversations because rent is a major issue for a number of Nigerians.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the reality, yes, there are people that this doesn't affect, but those are not the people that are the majority, or those who have to bear the brunt of this skyrocketing rent. So we're saying that we need systems and structures that will kick against. And the funny thing, I just want to mention this, is that if you, for example, live in an estate and you want to be the one who is the voice of reason that champions some sort of an aluta, they will kick you out.
Exactly.
They will, once you, 6 months to the expiration of your tenancy, they
You're
will
out.
give you
And the
notice to
worst
quit.
part is there are people that are ready to pay that. So if you're
They are
not
ready to
paying,
pay
you can
more.
leave.
They will
exactly.
activate
So
and
that's,
pay more.
that's it.
So I think that it's important that there are certain practices that we must kick against. One, the practice of collecting 2-year tenancy, 2-year rent, it doesn't make sense. There are certain websites, I can't do any free ad for them, but there are certain websites in Nigeria where you're looking for a property.
Yeah.
You go there, they're listed properties. You will see some of them, they would make it look a little cheaper than the average, maybe remove like 500,000, but they're demanding for 2-year rent. The Lagos State tenancy laws totally, outlaw that.
Doesn't
It's illegal.
work.
You're not meant to ask for 2 years rent. Then the agents, in fact, we also need to find a way to tighten systems and structures to ensure that Nigerians are not duped. It's already expensive enough. What we don't want to do is to cause Nigerians to then hire these properties and find out that they were duped. 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine who also is in the house hunting season went, met a few people, saw a house that he liked, told me the price, told me everything, all the amenities. I listened. As a professional house hunter that I am, I said to him, it sounds a little too good to be true.
Is that a title or job title?
Yes, because
Professional
I've moved
house
houses. I've moved 3 houses in a short duration, and it's not because I'm fighting with them or anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just get there and I realize
It's
I
not
don't
what
like
you
it.
paid for.
The-
It's not what you
it's
ordered.
what-
versus
yeah,
what you
like
want.
it's
Yeah.
not maybe convenient for me. It's far from work. I mean, look at our office has moved how many times?
Yeah.
We've moved, ordered differently from what we planned. So
Yeah.
I've had to move around a few times. But I said to him, Jack, it sounds a little too good to be true. Guess what? He found out that
You
it
were
was a
right.
fraud. He went back to the compound, had a conversation with the tenants and said, oh, please, I spoke to your landlord. And they said, no, that's not our landlord. This is our landlord.
Ooh.
Can I speak to your landlord? He got on a video call and found out that the person he'd been speaking to was a fraud.
Uh-huh.
So just to say to Nigerians as well, whilst you're doing your due diligence, you're trying to get houses, please take the due diligence to the next level. When they're not there, go to the houses, speak with the tenants, speak with those in the area to be sure that you're not speaking to the wrong people, because it's bad enough that you pay exorbitantly for rent, and it's even worse off that you might be paying that to the wrong person. But
Good advice you gave me.
Good advice.
Thank you, thank you,
Anyway,
thank you
let's
very
move to another wake-up conversation this morning. If your son or your daughter went to take part, or took part rather, in the 5 days, it starts April 28 to May 5.
5th of May, yeah.
Yeah, 5th of May, concerning the
University tertiary matriculation
yeah,
examination.
By the
UTME.
Joint Admission
UTME
Matriculation Board.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's a CTB, you know, of
Computer
course,
test,
computer,
yes.
you know, a lot of grammar.
It wasn't like
Alright,
it's only writing.
This is what
It
we
wasn't
call
this
technology.
It wasn't.
We just said
complicated.
JAMB. Well, yeah.
I'm going to write
Have you written
JAMB.
JAMB?
I don't want to make
But
200
now,
in my cutoff.
yes,
Any
there's
of you
a lot.
remember your cutoff? Your score. I still remember
My
JAMB
score, I wrote just once. I think I got just once. No, but I didn't use it. Don't bother. Don't bother clapping. Yeah.
Why?
Don't bother.
You went to go and
I'll
learn.
tell you later.
You went to learn tailoring.
This is the handwork I'm doing now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
anyway, there's a sad story regarding JAMB for students who actually took the exams and are still writing. The sad story is that a report did come out initially, and then it was proven true that parents had to ensure that their wards or their children would be represented or would be at the venue of the examination hall at 6:30 a.m. Now, this controversy has been, causing a lot of challenges and problems online. Challenges for the parents who still have to take their children to the center. Challenges for the fact that parents are finding it hard to move their children from home to the examination center where the exam will take place. Challenges are the fact that power outage did affect some parts of Nigeria, and we saw students breaking the system or fighting and getting angry. Parents also comment on, like a video you see here, questioning why JAMB would do that. And this is a video where students, those who came to sit for the examination, were angry, and they were, breaking the chairs and saying this is not what we expected. Now, bottom line, guys, for those who are watching us, if you are on your way with your child, we sympathize with you. But the question is, why would JAMB start an examination at 6:30 a.m.? And guess what? His Excellency Peter Obi did react to it and, wrote an episode on X talking about why, advising why JAMB would do that in the case of insecurity and so on. And the annoying thing is, JAMB now replied him and said, no, it's not 6:30, but they are coming there to ensure they get the accreditation and so on. The exam starts at exactly 8 or 9 a.m. See, I don't know what your thoughts are, but this story got me angry. It got me angry to the point that I said, I wish the registrar of JAMB could come on air and explain to Nigerians what kind of meeting they had. And they came up with the idea that parents or children should be at the hall at 6:30.
So their defense to that is that individuals who have no qualms with showing up at the airport 2 hours to a flight because
I saw that.
I think
I screen grabbed
2
that.
hours before the flight you must be there because we are closing the boarding gate. That if you
Is it the
can't
same
keep to
thing?
that, then you should be able to keep to this. But again, I do think that whilst we're making laws and policies, we must, whilst we're thinking about putting systems and structures to certain institutions, we must also, very importantly, prioritize the safety of the Nigerians, the average Nigerian, right? These are young children, typically between the ages of 14, 15, and 17, 18-ish. They are young. And even if they were adults, I think it's imperative, that JAMB handles this with some measure of empathy, not being a bit like aloof and uninterested. So try to make it look like, oh no, if you can come to the airport, then you can do this. I think they should approach this with a bit of empathy. I don't see what was incredibly wrong with what His Excellency Peter Obi said here, because he was saying, I came across multiple reports. It's not like he's fabricating the story. Everybody saw these videos and the people on social media sharing their experiences. There was a young girl, Esther, who for a while happened for 24 hours.
I put that post up on my social media
They said
page.
they didn't see her. Why?
She left
was on her
job,
way to
her examination
her
center.
examination center,
Yeah.
and she thought she entered the wrong bus. She had sent a message to her family saying,
She's
I think I entered
dizzy.
the wrong bus, my eyes are itchy, I'm feeling sleepy. And that was the last message they heard from her.
I was scared
So
for
we don't
her.
we don't want Nigerians to be in a state where they feel like everything doesn't have to be hard. We don't have to, and that's a fact. That's the thing we need to get over. You go to a government institution, you want to make an application. They are telling you drop your file. They can't you see I'm busy. What are they busy doing? Breaking groundnuts. Like we need
It's
to.
almost as if there's, thank goodness they've improved the passport system.
Yes.
If there's no element of hardship in it.
It's not
marriage registration.
everything
Everything
has
you
to be
do
difficult.
has to be difficult, and it's not. There's systems. It's just, and a lot of our problems are commonsensical. It's not like you're reinventing the wheel. It's not.
Fact.
is not something that has not been done before. And we also reinforce bad behavior. That is why we're in this state. When people drop the ball, there should be consequences for that. Instead of JAMB being defensive, they should have just said, look, we'll look at our systems, we'll do better next time. End of case. Why compare with airlines and all of that? And to those students that were breaking chairs, that was really unnecessary.
I was going to mention that.
There are other ways you could channel your anger in
Let's
a
not
very...
encourage
Is this the type of behavior you get into university and then you start joining cults because of...
But I agree with you, Benga. I agree. We don't encourage bad behavior, but that's JAMB's response on the screen. It says, Your Excellency, I must have said that our examination is scheduled to commence at 8 a.m., not 6 a.m., while verification and other clearance processes begins at 6:30 a.m. It is imperative that candidates are afforded adequate time to settle in before the exam begins. And people felt angry with this response. They were like, why are you responding that? You still mentioned 6:30 a.m. Who does that?
So you are reinforcing the 6:30 a.m.
So I think that a better approach to this would have been to say, okay, this is causing undue hardship on the average Nigerian. How about we make the accreditation at 9 a.m. and then exams start at 10 a.m. or make accreditation at 8 a.m. or 8 a.m. and then that's
Olive, you know the funny thing. You know the funny thing. Now, the exams are set up in a way that it's written in, let me use the word batches. So the first batch goes from between, let's say 10 before 12. Another one starts at 12, and then 2. Another one ends, I think the last batch is around 2 o'clock or so, in between like that. Why don't you just start the exam itself at 10?
Exactly.
It's just simple. It's plain sense. Just start at 10.
You have a whole day.
You have a whole day. Let the children come in and settle in. And I do not like the response and the tone of the voice from JAMB, the handle, saying, oh, this is what we're doing. It reeks of what we see of recent, where everybody feels I'm arrogant, I can respond anywhere I go.
Well,
no apologies.
I didn't see anything wrong with it.
I saw something wrong with that. And I think the registrar should come out. The registrar should have come out. I mean, in other crimes, come on, they'll tell the registrar, why would you? Olive, children lost their lives this weekend.
Agree. No.
The registrar will be doing rounds all over TV.
They lost their lives.
All over TV stations.
That young girl who was, look at that. Two kids died in this car because they were rushing to ensure that they get to their venue to write. We've seen these things happen many times. Why are we still doing? I always say this, that sadly, we have analog minds trying to run a digitized system.
I wanted to take something
They don't
back.
work.
I wanted to take something back when I said I don't have a problem with that. I guess what I was trying to say is that I think that it should have been handled differently. Press release may not have been a better approach. I'm hoping that if they haven't come on our platform, that they will go on other platforms this morning. First, to extend their sympathy, because it's caused undue hardship on the life of every Nigerian. So I think that it was imperative that they handled it differently. But like we said, we should not be making laws are made for man. Man is not made for the laws. Policies are made for men and not the other way around. So if we find that it's causing undue hardship, it's best to revisit it. But we'll be going into the meat of this conversation much later on the show this morning. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have time for a third wake-up conversation?
I don't think so. I think we can move on a Monday morning, most importantly. But first of all, I want to extend my condolences, and I think we all want to extend our condolences to the families who lost their loved ones. Just ensuring that it's painful. You've raised a child, and that child is about to go into the tertiary education system, and just because of a certain law, you lose that child to an accident, in death,
because of education,
because you just want that child to quickly meet up the 6:30 time or deadline.
Because someone just woke up and said
JAMB has not, I'm sorry, I know we're wrapping up, but JAMB has not come out with any apology or any statements to express their sympathy. None. And the registrar is possibly watching this program now and saying, in the normal terms, don't worry, just go on, we're not the first, we're not going to be the last. It's sad.
Well, we can't play politics with the lives of young Nigerians, but again, our hearts, our thoughts and our prayers are with those who have had to deal with irreparable loss as a result of this policy. We'll be expanding the conversation much later this morning. Let's now share our top stories for you today on Breakfast Central. This morning on Breakfast Central, the road to 2027 is still in conversation. Is Nigeria headed for a one-party state? As we've been seeing defections back to back, JAMB faces backlash over 6:30 a.m. examination schedule. We'll be unearthing the crisis in Nigeria's middle belt. Unfortunately, this has been the conversation we've been having for weeks. Groups train Niger-Delta youth on protecting national assets. And away from that, we'll be reviewing the newspaper front pages. This is the point where we open the phone line for you to join in. So stay tuned for all these and more.
Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central, on News Central. Let's start off with the story concerning the recent condemnations which have trailed the scheduling of the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME, by the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, which has also placed students in precarious situations by assigning examination times as early as 6:30 a.m. Nigerians, including the National Association of Nigerian Students, strongly condemned the action, citing the action as both inconsiderate and dangerous, given the prevailing security challenges in the country. Today, we shall be taking a look at this development as we x-ray the impact of starting examinations that early on students' performance and many more areas of concerns for the students being affected by this move.
Joining us this morning for the conversation is the CEO, Supreme Education Foundation School, Olubukola Ola Adewiyi. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, my pleasure.
So let's get your thoughts regarding this story. There have been, of course, anger and an outpour of outrage on social media against JAMB as the body and their response as well to the situation at hand. But what would you say this situation on the covers, or what does it reveal to us? What problems does it uncover?
I think the key thing is lack of care for the people, because we have to understand that the registrar, all those that are in charge, they are also parents as well. The security issues in the country is obvious. We all know all that is going on all around Nigeria. I mean, and the centers are far and they have to travel a very. So for 6:30, it means that most families, most children would be awake by 4 a.m. in the morning to get ready and to travel. And then how can they even put in their best in writing the exams if they have to sit down at 6:30 a.m. in the morning? So to me, it's really a lack of care for the citizens, lack of care for the children, because these are young adults, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, setting out to start an exam. And then it's not done anywhere in the world. So I wonder, as a country, how do we make decisions? How do we show empathy and love for the citizens and for these young adults?
Now, Madam, some have argued that, you know, when citizens have to take a flight, if they have to get on an international flight, they advise them to get to the airport 2 hours before takeoff. That this should also apply to JAMB. Do you think this argument holds water?
It's totally different. This is for international flights. For JAMB, I don't even understand why NAN had to be the one to take a stand that it should be at 9 o'clock in the morning. 9, 10 a.m. to start an exam, I don't think it's too bad or it's too far away. And if the children are seated at their centers by 8:30, I think that is fair enough. We can't compare this to international flights with rules, with takeoff, checking in issues, because by the time you check in your luggage, you get in, you have to walk to your to the flight stands. It's totally different. You can't equate exams with that. It's not done anywhere.
Right,
absolutely not.
I mean, you've been in the educational sector for quite a while now. Can you share with us the kind of impact this would have on the children, the young ones who are prepared? Possibly they've spent time having the mock exams, of which we hear that some students did not end up even doing the mock exams, and some who did, the results were not out. But what impact would this have, you know, especially going into the examination, having woken up as early as 4 a.m. just to meet up?
I think they would be given the least of their best at that time. 6:30 a.m. is too early for even 60. So even for us adults, we're a bit grudgy at that moment. You can't, their brains are not totally awake at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and the rush from 4 in the morning. And also we should know that for students, the fact that they have an exam in the morning, even if it's 9, 10 a.m., they are tensed a day the night before. So I'm thinking if they have to wake up at 4, they probably would not have slept because I have an exam. This is a determining factor for them, for their future careers. So JAMB is extremely important. I think the whole system for JAMB, UTME needs to be totally overhauled. We need to start looking at the blended scoring system in the country and not having just one day to determine your total future. I believe that we should understudy other systems, other countries out. And I think it's this rush system that is also giving room for all the malpractices as well going on with JAMB. I'm aware that some centers were also closed due to technical glitches, malpractices going on. 27 individuals as well were caught for impersonation. So it gives room for a lot of laxity here and there. 6:30 a.m. I mean, come on. Even the centers are not yet ready. I'm sure the students will get to some centers and the centers are not even awake and all ready to take them aboard for the CBT system, exams.
I mean, for a country where we're still, even with the elections, when they tell you the elections are ready and we're starting at a certain time, you get there and the materials are not even there. There's still logistics concerns. But I'll go back to what you just said about us understudying global best practices. You talked about the whole JAMB system being totally overhauled. There are those who argue that we should start to maybe explore situations that allow them take the exams from wherever they are, from their houses, and being able to make it digitally, fully digital. Are we ready for that here in Nigeria? And what sort of overhaul would you like to see with the system?
I think that we should have a scoring blended system, really. WAEC is doing a good job. If we could have WAEC in schools and students can have a local center close to them, we could do the same with JAMB. Have a center close to you. And for students in school, in SS3, they can take JAMB in schools. And if we use the blended scoring system, I mean, Singapore is doing that, Finland is doing that, the United Kingdom does that as well. If we could do that where your schoolwork is about 30% and JAMB is 70 or 60-40 as when we decide to embrace this, the school, they can sit in school and have their JAMB done rather than going to centers that, in fact, sometimes a week before, days before, they have to drill and find these special centers. So most schools could embrace that. Biometric systems could also help us with them sitting. So like the PSAT, for example, the College Board in the United States, we have students in Nigeria who sit for their PSAT exams right in Nigeria without having to go to the embassy or having to travel out of the country. And they do get their university admissions, placements right from the country. So why can't we do that and embrace that and have it done in schools or centers localized somewhere close to your home? So once you submit your JAMB form, you're within this particular local government. So let's say it's Etiosa, for example, then have it done within the boundaries of it, so they don't have to travel wide and far. I mean, look at that Esther traveling from Aja to Ekpe. That's far.
I mean, in response to that, JAMB has argued that they don't post students out of their areas, that whatever areas they put in the forms is where they post them to. And from the reports we've seen that there's even some monetary award for anyone who can prove that they registered in one location and then they were taken to another location, and they've given 48 hours from Saturday that they should send evidence to the FCCPC. But I think these are ongoing conversations. But how do you suggest that JAMB should have been able to address this? That's another thing that has come under criticism. Like you mentioned at the start of the conversation, you said the lack of care. Some would say their response is lacking of empathy. So how do you propose that they should have responded to this to maybe manage the outrage from Nigerians?
I think we have to get to the point as a country where we are not too big to apologize and say we goofed, we could have done things better. We could have looked into this. We could have looked at the timing, because I don't know the excuse for 6:30 a.m. I don't know what JAMB would come up with to say the reason why they have to start an exam at 6:30 a.m. So I think they should have just come to say, we goofed, we could have done it better, we would look into it and review and get back to children, have a better communication system with the students, and then restructure things. I think that would have made Nigerians feel better about this.
There are also incidents of missing kids and accidents, and JAMB hasn't said anything about it. Who do you think, your opinion, should take responsibility for children harmed in the process of going for an examination so early in the morning?
I think the whole body should be responsible for it, because one of our priorities while making decisions is to have the care of the students, have the care of the people, and we should know the impact of the decisions that we make and the rippling effect it has on the nation. Because if we have set an exam for 6:30 a.m., we should know that students, some will be there for 5 a.m. in the morning, some will set out to be there for 4 a.m. in the morning, considering depending on how close they are to the location or not. So I would take the whole body, JAMB, UTME as a whole, to be responsible, because when you make decisions, you have to sit down as a team as well to troubleshoot that decision, to think through and the rippling effect of that decision.
Well, permit me to also look at this from a different angle. JAMB in itself has been called to question many times. While it was called to defend a proposed budget of 1.1 billion naira just to feed its staff during the entire process of this matriculation examination, experts have called for a complete overhaul, saying that, we're spending so much money trying to keep our educational system running. You're in the UK, and I'm very certain that with your educational background, you're aware of how education has indeed improved in different climes, countries, you name them. Do you think the process of education that Nigeria is used today, the system, do you think it's really working? And what are your thoughts about having a complete change and makeover?
That's why I talked about the need to overhaul the system totally. I'm currently in the UK, but I run a school in Lagos, Nigeria, so I'm shuttling between home and being in the UK at the same time. And running a school in Nigeria, like I said, I started with the word care, always looking at things from the position of caring and building things for posterity in the country. The system in Nigeria needs a total overhauling. We need responsible and I would say heads that look deeply into decisions that they are making about education, and to think about the rippling effects of those decisions that are being made. I use the UCAS system, for example. It's a blended scoring system for admissions, and every decision that is being taken is well thought through. You look at, so for example, if for schools, admissions in the UK, and I'm even talking about even at the primary school level, it has to be a walking distance to your home. And I know we're doing that as well with the public sector, with the schools, and we can apply this consciously. The system just needs constantly and consistently to be reviewed over and over. And one of the things I say will work for Nigeria is when we begin to have a system where everyone in government has to have their children school in the country, have to have their children have to sit for the JAMB exams. I believe that at that point we will be more considerate, because we know that my little toddler at home tomorrow morning is going for JAMB. And I think at that point we begin to personalize the effect of the decisions that we make. So until we begin to review this, where, for example, in the UK, if you had a particular borough, for example, everything, the medicals, your education, your children education is all within that borough. So you can't you can't live in Koshofe. You can't be the chairman of a Koshofe local government and live in Etiosa. It's not possible. You will have to have your children's school within that. I think until we begin to do that, we are going to be far away from the decisions that we'll make, and we're going to be far away from the rippling effects of that decision. And so I think that is the major difference between maybe the UK, Singapore, Finland, and everything, because you find out that those making these decisions are their children sitting for JAMB exams. If they are sitting for JAMB exams, I'm sure they would not make they won't set the timing for 6:30 a.m. It's not possible as a parent. You won't have your child setting out, leaving the house at 5 a.m., 5:30 for an exam at 6:30 a.m. It's not possible. And I think that is where we have the disconnect.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing that. I just also want to go back to the CBT, the computer-based testing model. I know you've talked about a system overhaul and that we should be able to create systems in which the schools, the secondary schools are able to then host these exams. Do you think that if we're doing this, we're still going to merge it with what is currently existing, that is a computer-based testing model, or is this something that we should maybe completely do away with?
It's the CBT is beautiful, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, there is a huge digital divide in Nigeria. So you will find my school will be able to embrace the CBT because our students will be able to see it. But then the public school down the road, the community school down the road might not have enough systems in place for the students to be able to sit for the exam. So we have to either, I mean, it needs a total overall, really, because if we have to embrace the CBT, we have to be able to have centers where students, which is probably why JAMB has had to take on board different centers, and then the accreditations of those centers have been issued as well. We have to put into cognizance issue of power. Do all the schools have all the right powers to be able to power through the exam? Because with CBT, for example, in my school, we can't rely on PHCN. We have to use our own private, we have to use the generators to power that all through so that it doesn't go off and the student having to start again. So all this have to be put into consideration. So if our budget has allowed 1.1 billion for feeding, then we can as well invest that money for proper centers, well-equipped centers in each state, putting in regional variances into play, and then equip them better. So I think it's also mismanagement of funds, and if the funds are properly well aligned, then we don't need to do away with it because it makes things better. In fact, ideally, if this is well thought through and well planned and well invested in, it's the best. We could also have biometrics and all of that in place, and this will do away with issues of malpractices, impersonations, and even children can sit at home and have the exams done.
Right. Let's talk again before we wrap up the conversation about the credibility of JAMB as a system for examining students before they get into the university. Do you perceive that this should still be the most important metric or yardstick for determining how students get into the university? When we were growing up, a number of us had to write JAMB. We had a certain cutoff. At some point, introduced the post-UTME. So if you don't make the cutoff, you're not getting into school. Should we maybe revisit the way that we accept students into the university? Or would you say that JAMB as an exam, the UTME as an exam, is actually 100% credible way for determining the preparedness of students to get into the university?
Absolutely not. And it's one of the reasons why I talked about this blended scoring system. I think that would work better than using just a day to determine the future of our young adults. the blended scoring system gives at least 30% or 40% to work done in school. So with UCAS, for example, you can over the years acquire your UCAS points, and this is the United Kingdom admission system. You can take time. I remember my daughter having to do some EPQs because I need it for my UCAS point. I need them for my UCAS point. They did extra things at work in the secondary school time just to acquire. So you can acquire UTME points while you are in school. You could so right from GS1 to SS3, you could start preparing and getting ready for your university entrance examinations. I think that works better, and it could be 30%, 60% to 70% to JAMB, or 60-40. But I think that's a better system than just actually relying on just a day. I think that is not good enough. That needs to be looked into, definitely.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining us. A very, very, say, fruitful conversation. Thanks, CEO, Supreme Education Foundation School, and Mrs. Olubukola Ola Adewi. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely my pleasure.
All right. Well, the conversation will definitely continue. Don't forget, it started sometime in April 24, and it's going to linger up until the 5th of May.
I think that last question I asked, I thought it was a very important question to ask, because being able to say, oh, this is how we do things, it's great for a while, but at some point you have to revisit to see if it's still working.
I mean, systems evolve.
Exactly, and if it's not working, then prefer a different alternative or find a way to, rework that particular system. Because I remember back in the day, I don't know if that's still the procedure now. It almost looked like the holy grail was for you to score up to 200. And then when you score up to 200, each person's university then has a particular cutoff for your course. So for example, I studied law. I had to get at least 200. I think I had 269 at the time. Then my university had a cutoff. My course had a cutoff.
Oh, yes.
For you to study law, minus the UTME, of course, the standard is you must get to 200. You then have to do the post-UTME. And when you do the post-UME, that's what it's called, post-UME, then you have to get a cutoff of, my course for law was 65 at the time, right? Thankfully, I was able to, supersede that. So I just feel like it's important, because there are some people that, I don't know if that's a proper yardstick to determine their intelligence.
My takeaway from, exactly, how do you judge someone's 6 years of education in one day? In one day, and if you miss it, you have to wait for another year. So a whole year is wasted. My takeaway from that interview is where she said that if these officials that are making this don't have words, that are part of the system, if their children aren't taking JAMB, they won't be able to relate or empathize. That's why they make decisions without thinking of the consequences. Because if it affects one of you, if it's not good for you, then it shouldn't be good.
And their words will never be here. There's nothing we will do about it.
It's pathetic.
They will never be here.
The problem is, since there's no accountability, then there's no
anyhow system. Dysfunctional system.
It's an anyhow system, like you said. And I really enjoyed the conversation as well, looking at the fact that Binga mentioned. Truly, if you have those who live in a certain area, local government area, I think the criteria should be, before you even get to be a chairman of a local government or whatever, they have to cross-check and see that your children are schooling in Nigeria,
that
so on and so forth.
I mean, children is even too far. Some of these guys don't even live there.
They don't.
We're talking of state governors that live in Abuja.
Yes,
state governors
stay there. So how much more? So it's a tough one. It's basically like asking for something that you would never see happen, but maybe sometime or someday
asking for a bill that would say public office holders' children must school in Nigeria, they must use Nigerian medical.
But you remember the bill that came forth now, it didn't see the light of day. That,
of course,
we can't lose hope. I mean, as members of the Fourth Estate of Nigeria, one of our responsibilities is to bring this conversation to the fore, and that's what we're doing, because we cannot continue like this and say, okay, it's the Nigerian system, it's Nigeria way now. I'm sure when the videos of the students breaking the chair came out on social media, if you run through the comments, what do you expect? There's a certain level okay, you're expected to be disappointed in the Nigerian system, and it shouldn't be. Look at when the Honorable Minister of Works fixed that bridge in 2 days. That's the level of excellence we should strive for and celebrate. Let them surprise us that, oh, this is not the Nigerian factor. Things can work, and let's turn a new leaf and a new chapter in the history of this country.
Do you remember sometime in Makurdi, Benue, 2024? Prior to that, before they went to court, and then they told the JAMB, in quotes, staff to free themselves of, is it 20 million, 25 and 6 million? What was the whole story? The same JAMB we're talking about, $100,000 was missing. They said a snake swallowed it.
The money.
The snake has not been found till today, and then the story all of a sudden has
I'm sure that
disappeared.
if George Owen could write a follow-up to Animal Farm, it would be very interesting because of all the accusations leveled on animals.
Even the snake could talk.
Innocent animals.
If the snake could talk, as if that wasn't enough, then the monkey came out.
Last time I was in Makurdi Zoo, I was very close to the python enclosure. I just wanted to swallow a little bit of some dollar.
Let's go straight to our next story,
anyway,
guys.
Let's move on from this conversation to the next one.
Absolutely.
To combat the drivers of criminality and violence in the Niger-Delta, select host community leaders from oil-producing areas along with private security services have undergone training on mitigating criminality and violence to secure oil facilities in the region. News Central correspondent Austin Azu tells us more.
Over the years, there have been allegations regarding the lack of professionalism exhibited by private security personnel tasked with oil pipeline surveillance and protection, as well as other critical national assets in the Niger-Delta region, potentially due to inadequate capacity or technical expertise. The host community leaders are also implicated in the accusations of instigating violence to carry out criminal activities on national assets. Against this backdrop, 34 private security personnel and community leaders converged on Asaba, Delta State capital, to undergo training facilitated by Search for Common Ground in partnership with the European Union, focusing on human-centered strategies to combat violence and criminality across the 3 states, 33 LGAs, and 66 communities in the Niger-Delta region.
The reason why we're training private security actors is because they are active in the communities, they are critical to community stability, they handle some tensions in the communities, they interact with the entire levels of the community. So seeing that there are oil installations, there are critical infrastructure of the government in these communities, we considered it important and critical that these people also be part of the security system we seek to address.
The trainees, who underwent training on various security framework models to address the root causes of violence, thereby contributing to long-term stability and development in the Niger-Delta, also shed light on their key takeaways and plans for implementing the knowledge in their respective offices and communities.
You know, sometimes we have difficulties dealing with some communities and some actors, okay? So from this training, we taught them about some pattern, how to go about some things.
We learned that when human rights are being violated, there are necessary precautions to take in order to maintain peace and order.
Participants were sourced from communities in Delta states, including youth-based community groups, private security guards, and heads of vigilance organizations. In Asaba for News Central, Austin Azu.
You're watching Breakfast Central on a Monday morning. Let's give you a recap of the stories we've looked through this morning on Breakfast Central. JAMB faces backlash over 6:30 a.m. examination schedule. Group trains Niger-Delta youths on protecting national assets. Coming up next this morning on Breakfast Central, we'll look at the road to 2027. Is Nigeria headed for a one-party state, and unearthing the crisis in Nigeria's middle belt? And also, Kaduna State GOC 3rd Division sues for peace between farmers and herders. Stay with us. Breakfast Central continues shortly.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Breakfast Central. In case you missed the first hour, the second hour is what we're about to begin. Well, in the past few days, we've seen the ruling party consolidating power across various states, with key political figures of states known to be strongholds of the opposition defecting to the ruling party, from Akwa Ibom Governor Omoyeno canvassing support for the re-election of President Tinubu to the defection of Governor Sheriff Oborowori, former Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, and others in Delta State, which we expect to see officially today. The recent shift in the political landscape has had Nigerians questioning the balance of power and what this portends for the nation's democracy. We do have a guest who will be joining us to speak on this. He definitely is the 2023 presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Prince Adewale Adebayo, who joins us this morning. But before we welcome him to start this conversation, Olive, I believe we do have our correspondent who's on ground to speak to us as well.
Absolutely. We'll head to South Africa, where we speak with our correspondent, who gives us the latest on the impact of Donald Trump's statement in March regarding Lesotho. Now, recall that there have been tariffs, as Trump constantly pushes America first and the America first impacts. What this means: Lesotho has had to experience a 50% tariff increase. How are they receiving it? What are the next steps? We have Bongani Siziba, News Central South Africa correspondent, to bring us update on this. Good morning, Bongani. Thank you for joining us this morning. Talk to us. How is Lesotho reacting to the statement by President Donald Trump, the tariffs, the increase in tariffs, and what does this mean for the people of Lesotho?
The people that I've spoken to, they are so much worried here in Lesotho that if tariffs are to go by to 50%, we know that now we still have a pause, a 90-day pause by Donald Trump. But if it is to go by, it's going to affect a lot of people here in Lesotho, because Lesotho is so dependent on textile industry, factories, clothing factories rather in Lesotho, that also export beyond the borders of Lesotho, United States also included. If I can tell you, Olive, I was in one company where they told me that the golf T-shirts that Donald Trump wears, they manufacture them in Lesotho, and I was in that company and I saw some golf T-shirt being manufactured there. But today I'm at another factory again, where it's a clothing factory where they manufacture also clothes, jeans that goes to the United States. Some of them that even maybe Donald Trump wears. But let me just bring in the managing director of this company just to speak more on this. Good morning, ma'am. How are you? This is a big company here in Lesotho, and a clothing company that manufactures beyond the borders of Lesotho. Please, can you tell us what you do here?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I am working here as the general manager, and what we do here is to manufacture jeans that we sell, like you correctly said, outside the borders of Lesotho. This is the first company that is dominantly owned by the Lesotho citizens. We have a complement of over 2,000 people working for the same group. It's 3 facilities, but it's managed by one owner, which is Mr. Tebo Kobedi.
And how big is the textile industry, and also how does it boost the economy of Lesotho?
The textile industry is the biggest one that we have on the private sector. Actually, we say it is the second largest after government of Lesotho. There comes the textile. This is where we have in total, we have over 30,000 Basotho working in the textile industry. So it's a bigger one that we have in the country after the government of Lesotho.
Let's talk about the tariffs. We know that 50% was imposed before the pause. If 90 days lapses and Donald Trump comes back and still impose 50% on Lesotho, especially when you look at the textile industry, how is it that going to affect the Basotho people and also the workers, thousands of workers that I'm seeing here?
When we first learned of the 50%, we were also uttermost shocked, because then it is not good news. It is going to negatively impact a number of jobs that we have, because say, for instance, if you were to ship 1 million worth of goods to the US, having the duty of 500,000, that is almost impossible. We had not had structured prices in a way that also to the end market that can be consumed. It takes longer process. It is a process to have that, priced with the customer as well. And the 50% tariff, it's impossible. It's impossible.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Olive, let me just bring in one worker here just to hear if these tariffs, if imposed, how they are going to affect them. Good morning, ma'am. Do you know about the 50% tariff that Donald Trump was about to impose on Lesotho? As a worker, a factory worker, how will this affect you?
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Like you said, I'm one of the operators in this factory. Definitely, it will affect us personally, because if I'm one of the family and I'm the breadwinner of the family, obviously, if that impact has been in the process, there will be no food in the family. Like I said, I'm the breadwinner of the family. I sponsor more than 5 heads of the family with food and everything.
Okay, Olive, you just heard one of the workers there and also the general manager speaking to us if these tariffs are to go by, how it's going to affect families' livelihoods here in Lesotho. But not only Lesotho, we know that many African countries, if these tariffs are to go by, many of them are dependent on exporting their goods to the US and other countries that are the Western countries. And we also know about AGOA. If this is to go by, we know that many countries are also worried about the AGOA, where the free trade AGOA, where most of the countries have been exporting their goods to the US are free of trading. So this is going to affect many citizens of Africa, not only Africa, but worldwide. We know we have seen already the effects of these tariffs. It's now back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Bongani, for bringing us that very detailed update from the perspective of, the leader in the business sector and someone who might be impacted. I did see a report that said Lesotho exports $237 million worth of goods to the United States, primarily textiles, and imports less than $3 million worth of goods. And that if this pulls through, about 30,000 workers, textile workers, stand to potentially lose their means of livelihood. And we've got to speak with one who shared that she's the breadwinner. So thank you for bringing that report. We hope that after this pause happens, we might not need to revisit this conversation, as the right policies will then be put in place to ensure that there's some sort of fairness and balance. Thank you, Bongani.
All right, we do have our guest. Let's go back to the conversation. We do have joining us the 2023 presidential candidate of the SDP, Prince Adebayo, who definitely is here to discuss the road to 2027. Is Nigeria fast becoming a one-party state? Our first question definitely would be one that we would ask, which has to do with his reactions to the mass defection of members of the PDP to the APC. But your answer will be required, please, after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Let's go straight to the conversation. Is Nigeria becoming a one-party state? We do understand that a lot of Nigerians have been talking following the mass defection of politicians from one political party or many to another one. And speaking with us once again is Prince Adewale Adebayo, 2023 presidential candidate. Thanks so much for your patience and staying with us. First of all, I'd like to get your reaction away from what we're about to discuss on the Trump tariffs. What do you make of the impact, especially for Nigeria? Any worries from your end?
Good morning, Nigerian, and God bless Nigeria. Well, when it comes to trade policies, the approach that the United States government under President Donald Trump is taking is a zero-sum approach. And that approach is not sustainable. I think that what I can read from their own tactic is that they want to threaten to bring the roof down in order to draw attention and bring partners to the table. I don't think that Nigeria is a country that is targeted, particularly. I think there are about 5, 6 countries, China, Vietnam, a few of them like that. Even their friends in the European Union, Canada, Mexico, where the majority of the imports come from. I think the U.S. reliance on Nigerian products is very minimal, less than 1%. So the trade policy will change, but it won't be so radical. And for us, what we need to do here, why I'm not worried, is that what we are willing to do, in a way, that policy favors us because under the WTO arrangement, we are not able to protect our own domestic market. Our textile industry is essentially going to Asia. Furniture and other basic things that we can produce here in Nigeria are now being imported into the country. And when we did a ban of rice under President Buhari, we see that the international community complained that why would we do that? So what that policy in a sense favors us because we need a bit of a rejuvenation of our basic industries here. So it's now for the government to take advantage of it. I think that overall, international global players would want free trade and they want no restriction, no tariff. But for someone like us in Nigeria, people like us who are trying to develop, the long run is going to be in our favor. We have the population, we have the market. If they lock us out of the market, we can consume a lot of our products. The products that we earn most of our money from, mainly petroleum, mainly solid minerals, those ones, they will not be able to put tariff on them because they're essential to their own economy. But I think it's for our policy makers here to adjust critically. Last year, when I was chairman of the trade policy conference at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, which was organized by Nigerian Customs, I was able to warn the Nigerian government that this was going to happen and that if US and Canada, who are like Siamese twins, can be having trade disputes, that it was a matter of time before we reach our turn. Now we should take the advantage of that to grow our industry. We have nothing to fear at all, except if we have poor leadership.
Now, away from trade policies, let's get to matters of politics. Prince Adebayo, we've recently seen a wave of defections from the opposition party to the ruling party. In your opinion, is this a testament to the popularity of the ruling APC, or is it something that we should be more worrying about the state of our democracy in Nigeria, something more concerning?
Well, for someone like me, who has been receiving defectors from the APC and PDP, it will be hypocritical and envious of me to complain that some people are moving to the APC. I think that there's no fear for democracy there, in the sense that, one, democracy lies with the people. Majority of Nigerians don't even belong to any political party. So as we speak today, the threat to our democracy is the fact that majority of Nigerians don't feel compelled or persuaded enough to be affiliated to the political parties. So the movement of people who have some names or who occupy certain positions where they're not even performing quite well to the ruling party is not something I consider to be negative. In fact, I've always argued that the definition of opposition should be properly understood. Opposition does not mean that because you don't belong to the party that has produced the president of majority National Assembly, that doesn't make you opposition. Opposition should be about whether you have ideological differences, you have something that the government is doing that you are opposing. But you could see that where they are moving from, PDP and APC, they are in alliance. They are the same. They are essentially one complex of the political parties. They are together. So if you move from PDP to APC, you really haven't moved. You've just adjusted your seat from one end of the room to the other, because they have the same policies. They don't argue along party lines. And if you see all the activities in the National Assembly, you will not see any party line division among them. If you want to expel somebody, even members of that person's party will join the majority to expel the person. If you want to pass bad laws, the opposition, so-called the other parties, CDP, Labour, whatever, they will join the APC in passing the bad laws. So if they are passing a budget that is unconstitutional and contrary to Chapter 2 of the Constitution and against the people, and is poorly structured, poorly numbered, they will all come together and oppose it. So opposition you find in the National Assembly is usually along regional lines. Whether you bring a tax bill, there's no PDP position on the tax bill, and there's no APC position on the tax bill. You only have the position of northerners, northern governor, things like that. So let us understand the structure of our democracy. The political parties essentially, and I said, I think it was on your show that I said that Nigerian political elite essentially have the same ideology, but they don't have modus vivendi for sharing the spoil of office. That's why you find them in different political parties. So what Nigerian people need to do today is to try to bifurcate the democracy and ensure that while all of them are massing up all the bad performance from President Tinubu to some of these governors, when all of them are massing up into one party, the people of Nigeria should mass up to another party so that it can be like Brazil, where you know that this is the party of the people, and the other one is the party of the elite. That's the approach we are taking in the Social Democratic Party.
So what would be the party of the people that you speak about? Saying, I'm assuming that you believe that the party of the elite would be the APC in this case, because you said that the APC and the PDP are sort of one and the same. So which party would be the party of the people?
Well, not to sound advertorial, the aspiration of the SDP is to be the party of the people. Occasionally, we ourselves have got some bit of pollution because some of the people who are notorious for bringing bad governments in the elite structure have put to our side, and because of the constitutional right of association, we are not able to say don't join us, but that's why you see that we've had a very tense ideological discussion that this is the party of the people. If you want to come to join us, you are welcome, but this is a party of the people. It's a party that believes in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, farewell to poverty and insecurity, things that affect the people, how to make sure that the commodity has the economy is not in the hand of the few elites who bribe politicians with campaign funds and things like that. That's what we want to do in the SDP, and that is the party of the people. Labour Party has a natural right to claim to be a party of the people, but unfortunately, they do need to look into it because the Labour Party, especially in the last election, the people who ran on their ticket came from the elite structure, and the policies that they brought were not the policies that can be associated with the Labour Party anywhere in the world. They are very conservative policies, they are very neoliberal policies, they are very neo-colonial policies. So for that reason, they lost that credential, and then they are in some crisis now. Hopefully, I pray to God that they manage to come out of it. But a lot of people who are on the side of the people have political parties that have been deregistered, have not been registered. So it's our hope that the SDP will not be lost to the elite structure, that we are going to keep it open and many people can mass into the party. And that's why I think we are the fastest growing political party now. You can, don't believe me, just go to INEC. We are the one returning the highest number of new members to the INEC every week.
Okay.
Every week.
I also want to take you back to something you just said. You talked about the Labour Party claiming to be the party of the people, but you don't agree with that because you believe that there's some elites that joined the party and brought certain ideologies that are not representative of Labour parties around the world. Who are these elites that you speak of, and what ideologies did they bring to the Labour Party?
Okay, I didn't say that Labour Party is claiming to be part of the people. They've stopped doing that. I said that they have a natural claim to it by their name and by their history, that they are no longer going that way. But you will notice that their presidential candidate last time and the senators that they have, some of whom are already now joining the APC, the policies on which they ran were policies that were similar to the PDP policies, because that's where they came from, and are similar to the policies now being badly implemented by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC. So it is only the normal membership of the Labour Party, they remain the same, proletariat, workers and all of that, but they don't produce them. They don't produce them as president, they don't produce them for governors, they don't produce them for Senate, they produce them for the National Assembly. And I'm not even sure that they produce them for Houses of Assembly. So you do not have to be a member of the party, you just pay or buy the form, no question asked is given to you, and then you go out and campaign saying that I'm going to cut jobs, I'm going to remove subsidy, I'm going to do this and that. These things are not things that a party of the people would accept.
So you wouldn't have removed, are you saying that you wouldn't have removed subsidy if you were if you had eventually become president?
If I answer your question, that would be the 11 million time I've said so. I will not.
Okay.
And I will lay down the policies why we will not. And if you say you will in SDP, you will not get the ticket. And if you are not careful, you will get expelled. So, will you believe these are things you cannot do? So that's what I think. That's why we don't want any governor to join us, because we look at all the governors, none of them is performing. So we don't need any of them to join us. We need them to face the verdict of the people. And we want to produce new governors, new president, new senators, and so on and so forth, that will now upstage those who are there now. So we're not jealous that wrongdoers are joining wrongdoers. We just want them all assembled in one place so that we can actually use the voters as a firing squad for them.
All right. But there are fears that some of the politicians who are moving to new political parties end up, dismantling the fabric of that political party. And after they've gotten what they want, they also move to the next. Are you not worried that the current politicians who are indeed galloping from one party to another are all of a sudden coming to SDP? Are you not worried that they may in any way affect your political party, and if they don't get what they want, they would also continue the consistent move that they are known for?
No, we're not worried, because you don't worry for what you are planned for. So you don't tell a person who has a house whether you're worried about the rainy season. You make sure you repair your roof, the dry season, ahead of the rainy season. What we managed to do was to define what our party stands for. And that's why you will have seen some of the reactions as people are joining our party. We welcome them, and we tell them ideological issues, and we also tell them all these shenanigans that you do in your party, don't bring them here. And we spend a lot of time educating our members. Don't suddenly get used to money you didn't ask for or money you didn't work for. Don't start to learn bad habits. Don't start to set up fake structures. Don't start to do unlawful registration. Don't start to fragment yourself. Don't start talking about ethnicity, religion, and things. So keep educating our people, and you can go around the state, you will see a lot of tension, because when they come and they say, oh, we want to move you to a bigger secretariat, we need to buy this or that, people say, no, that's not what we need in this party. Maybe you should keep your money to yourself. And you will see a lot of, you saw that there was a press conference by all our state chairmen where they said, look, you guys who are coming newly, study our ideology, don't try to impose anything on us, we don't need anything from you, just join the party and start behaving well. So that's the kind of thing, we have that dialogue all the time. It is not contrary to what they are thinking. It's not that we don't want them, we just don't want to come and change us. We want to change them. And we don't want to be used for things that are not in the interest of the people. I gave a speech which went viral last week on my wife's 50th birthday. I said, if you have arrangements in your former political party, if you were a former supporter of President Tinubu, and you had your conspiracy against the people, and you promised your own reward for that, and they didn't give it to you, that is not the basis to come to the SDP. And if you come to the SDP, don't tell us, we don't want to know, we are not interested in it. It is not that we are not opposed to President Tinubu. We are opposed to him vehemently on policy. We do not have a history with him. We have no understanding with him. When they won the election and they were offering us position, we did not accept. We did not dramatize it. We just told them, sorry, keep it to yourself, to all your government, who will be here offering alternative. The same thing with the coalition. We are talking with the people. What we are saying is, if you plan something out there on how to wrest power, don't come to us. Just come to us only if you want to wrest power for the benefit of the people. And you must now start talking to us on what you will do differently. Start talking to us on what the people want. Start talking to us about how you are going to show to the people that you are repentant and you are accountable for your past action, past words, past misdeeds, past misgovernance. Once you do all of that, then you join our party, we can grow in the structure, and when we see that you have behaved very well, maybe not in this election, maybe in the next election cycle, maybe in the future, we'll start to feature you, but for now, we want to keep our stream very pure and let it be that Nigerian people who are angry have a political party for themselves.
But Prince Adebayo, I mean, people listening now might think, wow, that your political party is almost like the rules and regulations you have is almost like you're joining a private members club. Doesn't that oppose the principle of democracy in the first place, where people think of politics as a game of numbers? You want more people to join your party, and you're setting up all these barriers. That's one. My second line of questioning is this. If you look at the opposition political parties in Nigeria today, they are either dealing with one form of crisis or the other. How has the SDP managed to insulate itself from this crisis? And aren't you afraid that all these strange bedfellows, those that have been associated with the APC or PDP in the past that you recently admitted into your fold, might corrupt the system or they might be moles?
Well, the answer, your second question is the answer to the first question. The reason why rules are there is, how do you know a member of SDP from a member of another party? You know not just by the logo of the party, but by the set of beliefs that we have. So if we join an association and the minimum requirement is that you must believe in their ideology, in their system, you can't say I'm a Catholic, you don't believe in Virgin Mary. That's not, there's no democracy in that. You say, well, I'm a Catholic, but I don't believe in Virgin Mary. I'm a Catholic, but I don't believe in the redemptive sacrifice of Christ. I don't believe in the Pope, and I don't believe in the sacrament. So you can't do that. You cannot say I'm a Muslim, but I don't believe in praying 5 times. I don't believe in going to Makkah. Then what do you believe? Why do you want to be a Muslim? So you cannot say, I believe in the SDP, and you don't want to believe in programs that work for the people. That's our requirement. We are not saying that you must go to the house of Prince Adebayo and wash his clothes before you join the party. That's not what we are saying. What we are saying is that you must subscribe to the constitution of our party. You must subscribe to the ideology of the party, which is derived from Chapter 2 of the Constitution. And many things that you have been doing in your former party that are not consistent with those beliefs of ours, then you have to drop them. You cannot come and start to talk about you are going to punish the people, you are going to do any of these policies that don't work for the people. That's the minimum requirement. And if you are known to have been doing them in your former party, you must be seen to sufficiently denounce such things. That's what we're saying. In addition to that, there are some rules that are just basic decorum. Which is about being honest, not use money in politics. For example, these parties are known to bribe delegates to say, I was paid $10,000 to vote. We can't do that here with the SDP. We've never done it, we don't know how to do it, and we're not going to start doing it now. So those are the things that are not too hard. Then with respect to the second leg of your question, we are having peace out of discipline. This discipline is the key. And the discipline means that you do not do money politics, don't accept money from people, Many of the parties that are reeling now is because they are being funded by these governors and these big men. And these big men, after funding you, they don't want to obey your laws. They want you to sell to them what they are paid for. So those are the things that we've managed so far. Secondly, we do not run our ambition. As I'm talking to you now, people who want to run for president are joining my party. I'm not stopping them, I'm not blocking them. We're all using the same structure, no fractionalization. When it's time for the primaries, we go to the convention. Whoever is the winner, we support the person. That's the process. That's why we have discipline. And we are not being controlled from outside. We don't have any member of our party who is a minister under APC or who is collaborating with them, and they will tell them, go and destroy your home where you are coming from in order to keep your job. We don't have any of that. And we pray to God not to have it. And that's it. Discipline, discipline, discipline.
Okay. I think on a final note, just to, I mean, you said that it's not like your party is against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but against the policies that he's made or that his government has made for the country. There are those who argue that to be able to overturn the current administration's policies means one will need to kick them out of power. And the only way to kick them out of power would be a coalition, an opposing coalition. So would you say, whilst you say you're welcome to, the party is open to those who would stick to the party's ideologies and the rules and regulations, are you open to a potential coalition with the major opposition parties?
We're open to a coalition that guarantees that they will implement Chapter 2 of the Constitution, they will implement the manifesto of the SDP, they will be on the side of the people. Because we are not interested in election day victory only. Election day victory is meant for politicians only, and maybe their spouses, and their donors and sponsors and campaign staff. The real victory with electioneering is when you deliver for the people. And that delivery for the people is what we haven't seen. We have seen election victory. We have seen 2015 APC opposition defeating incumbent PDP. We have seen new government coming in. We have seen Tinubu replacing Buhari. What we haven't seen is better life for the people. We haven't seen accountability. We haven't seen rule of law. We have not seen an economy that works. We've not seen compassion for the people who are suffering. We've not seen rule of law to see that those who are in power are actually under the law. We haven't seen any of that. So that is what we are looking for. So what do we gain in joining just any opposition, any coalition that doesn't guarantee that they will serve the people? Only guarantees that we will replace the person who is there with somebody who is worse than him. So we don't want to be part of that. It's better that history writes that we took over power and we changed the destiny of the poor and we made the country a great country. So that the discussion we started with, tariff, economy, trade, all these issues, we will be a master of it, and the world will know that a new agro-industrial power is coming out of Africa. Now, on the other hand, what do we gain if we just go there and find out suddenly that maybe I'm vice president, or I'm president, or I'm a minister, and I start doing what Tinubu is doing? What they are doing, according to government now, in other climes, is pure criminality, it's pure unconstitutionality, it's pure carnage against the people. Nowhere is safe, no stomach is filled with any food, nobody's job is secure, no job is well paid, the currency is not stable, the country is not properly governed, the president is an absentee president with scant regard to the dignity of his office, with scant regard to his functions as commander-in-chief of armed forces. People are dying, gallivanting in Paris, wherever, and there's no seriousness on the part of anybody. So you don't want to do a coalition that is going to result in that. How many 4 years in the life of a human being? 4 years, 4 years, 4 years. Before you know you are old, and that generation goes away without solving a single problem. How many of the problems that were in existence when I was born, January 8, 1972, have been kicked out by government, successive over time? They remain the same. Blackout, unemployment, insecurity, kidnapping, poverty. Why? No infrastructure, nothing works. It is even by a miracle that I was having anxiety at the beginning of this call whether electricity and internet is going to allow us to finish this interview in peace. So no country worries about these things anymore. We worry about great things, and that is why we are careful with the coalition. We don't want to spoil our brand. We don't want to have a bad name. You remember a man they used to call Lai Mohammed? who used to pillar President Goodluck Jonathan, who used to call him clueless, who used to make all the appropriate noises. He became a minister in the government that was worse than that of Goodluck Jonathan. He has disappeared into the ethers now. He's not accountable for anything. And many more of Buhari's ministers are crawling out of the caves with cases to answer for unaccountability without coming out to do something about that. They are also forming a new coalition. So we are our brothers. We are the same country people. We welcome them. But that question must not escape from our lips, that if you do not want to change governance, they don't change the incumbent. If you want to change the incumbent, then you must be willing to change governance. And if we don't change President Tinubu in 2027, I can tell you we are going to be in serious crisis.
Right. 2023 presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Prince Adewale Adebayo. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on the show.
Thank you all, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you for your time, and we're glad NEPA didn't add to your anxiety this morning. They were well behaved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We still have more conversations. We head into the Middle Belt to still have conversations about insecurity, especially in Nigeria's Middle Belt, but we'll have that conversation after this break. Welcome back. The Middle Belt region of Nigeria, encompassing states like Benue, Plateau, and parts of Nasarawa and Taraba, have experienced persistent violence stemming from years of conflict between nomadic herders and sedentary farmers, with many herders being Muslims in some cases and the farmers predominantly Christian. But is there more to the root of this long-standing conflict? Now, while it appears that the primary drivers of the conflict are competition over dwindling resources, religious and ethnic tensions, historians actually trace the roots of this original complexity back to political succession issues dating as far back as the colonial era in the 1960s. A report by the Observatory of Religious Freedom in Africa documented over 55,000 killings between 2019 and 2023, alleging that the Fulani ethnic militia is responsible for approximately 42% of civilian deaths. Now, this crisis has allegedly led to a significant humanitarian emergency, with over 8.3 million people displaced. To help us unravel the mysteries and the history behind the ongoing conflict in the Middle Belt, we're now joined by Dr. Stanley Kawam, the Deputy National Public Secretary, Middle Belt Forum. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I think to help us set the context for this conversation, because unfortunately, it feels like we keep revisiting the same issues. They didn't begin today, but we need a proper historical context as to how did we get here? What were the initial causes of the insecurity in the Middle Belt?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, viewers. The trajectory of our collective misery as a nation is that, in the words of Thomas Jefferson, he said, all human beings are created equal and that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Among them are right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Conversely, in the Middle Belt, we are, in the words of Frantz Fanon, the wretched of the earth. That is simply because the life of a Middle Beltan has been reduced to a mere statistical figure. For instance, remember what happened in Uromi, sadly, and it stands condemnable, where 16 hunters allegedly were massacred. And juxtapose that with the killing of about 200 persons in Bokos. And what happened in Nagatu, what happened in Basa. And when you look at these screaming headlines across the globe condemning what happened in Uromi, juxtapose it with the grave silence over the carnage on the plateau and in Benue, it tells you that to a very large extent what life really, really amounts to between these two sides of this same nation, really, it's something that we really need to reflect
so when you
on.
say silence, where would you say the silence is coming from?
When I say the silence, the point is this. When you look at the screaming headlines about what happened in Uromi, the entire nation was gripped with so much fear that you could almost feel the tension across the nation, condemnation coming from, reputable personalities such as the Sultan of Sokoto and many, prominent northerners condemning what happened in Uromi. But when it happens on the Plateau, when it happens in Benue, when it happens in the entirety of the Middle Belt, there is what? Grave silence from the northern oligarchy. Well, let me just take you down a memory lane. Between the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, there were Quranic schools in the entirety of the North. But particularly between 1965 to the late 70s, Middle Eastern Muslims came and recruited Nigerians to be indoctrinated into the philosophy and ideology of Said Qutb in Egypt, in Cairo of Egypt. And beyond that, there were those who also subscribed to the philosophy and the ideology of Maududi, and it is all built on how to create an Islamic state. When those people came back within the early 80s, that was when the Metasine religious aberrations commenced. Now, when you look at the pattern of everything that has happened, particularly within the Middle Belt, from the Metasine religious interruptions right up to Kalakato, to the Boko Haram insurgency, to the banditry in Northwest, right up to the recent one we have, is it Lakurawa? We now have another one, Mahmuda, Fulani herdsmen. All of the attacks are so coordinated in a manner that it's targeted towards what? Ethnic cleansing to reclaim land, including the Sharia imposition in most parts of northern Nigeria during the Obasanjo era. Now, the point is this: the version of Islam that these people went and were indoctrinated in, it's built on how to establish an Islamic state. And how do you establish an Islamic state? You establish an Islamic state through indoctrination, indoctrinating your followers, just like Yusuf, the erstwhile, or rather the departed founder of Boko Haram, comments. When he started in Maiduguri, he was what? Teaching them as a sheikh or as a Muslim or Islamic scholar. He was indoctrinating them into the philosophies and the ideologies of how to create an Islamic state. Now, when that failed, they now began to what? Use their disciples who have infiltrated either the ranks or institutions of government to either use those institutions, be it the police, be it the army, be it the judiciary, be it the legislature, be it even the executive, to what? Enhance and what? Bring about the creation of an Islamic state through their actions and inactions. When that fails, they now begin to compromise institutions of state to now make way for that creation to take place. And when it fails, the last option left to them is jihad. And when I want, by all these things that I've mentioned, I want to place it in a context that everybody will understand.
Because of time constraints, we would like you to move forward, because we have quite a lot of questions to ask to.
So fundamentally, when you look at the Sharia imposition in the North, it was what? Used by governors who were occupying what? Offices, or political offices that were now using that to now bring about what? The imposition of an extremely theocratic state that is completely antithetical to the secularity of the Nigerian constitution.
In summary, would I be right to say the crisis we're witnessing today in the Middle Belt is as a result of this and more, not just firmer header crisis?
Not at all.
Now let's look at, I'm sure there's a saying that when you keep doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results, it's insanity. And we've been having intermittent crises over the last years. These attacks come, they go, and the security forces have not been able to nip it in the bud once and for all. But there's something we haven't heard recently, we haven't heard in a long time, that's come up in our political discourse, and military analysts have also said. We'd had former Chief of Army Staff, General T.Y. Danjuma, said, look, self-defense. There's been talks of self-defense. Do you think, what do you make of this? And will it turn the tide when the people say enough is enough? We're not sitting ducks. You're not going to keep attacking us and killing us. We have to do something about it. And what dangers and fears do you have for that when the government is saying, look, you have to help yourself, that haven't helped those who help themselves?
Well, Nigeria is primarily a secular state. And based on the principles
constitutionally a secular state.
That's right. And based on the principles of liberal democracy, equity, fairness, justice, freedom, liberty are the democratic tenets that defines a secular or a democratic state. Now, when you are now faced with an existential threat, where first and foremost you are being killed, and those who survive are displaced, those communities are being inhabited by the same attackers, and government looks away, security agencies look away, and they even know where these people, the basis from where they orchestrate these attacks. They know the camps that these attacks are being orchestrated from. Because we're talking about people invading communities, riding over 100 motorcycles. So you can't tell me that they are spirits. They pass through different routes and there are security agencies. Now the thing is this, even the Director General of the DSS came out to say that self-defense is the last option that we're left with. But let me ask you this fundamental question. By the time you decimate a community, you completely annihilate them from their ancestral lineage.
Who's left to defend?
That you don't even allow them to go to farm. So by virtue of all these attacks, you've crippled them economically, you have depopulated them, and at the end of the day, if you say this will defend themselves, where do they even acquire sophisticated arms that would match the firepower of what these assailants come with?
It also sends a message that might is right. So if they override your community, they've won. So, I mean, you said defend, it was a battle, and the stronger side would always win, which is not fair, and negates the principles of natural justice. Yeah.
But the point is this, Nigeria has never accepted that it's a failed state. If the government has come out to admit that Nigeria has failed as a state, and we have fallen to the Hobsonian state, where life is brutish and short, dog eats dog, then that is where, of course, we could ordinarily, that argument could hold sway. But the Nigerian government still maintains that Nigeria is not failing. The security agencies keep assuring us that they can rise up to the task. And let me be frank with you. This is a situation where all the barbarity and the absurdities within the Middle Belt have been so normalized, such that it is no longer about what is right or wrong, but certainly just tacit approval by state. For instance, let me ask you one question. When anything happens, for instance, in the Northeast, you see the aggression with which the Nigerian armed state confronts that agitation or that aggression. But when it happens in other parts of the country, all of a sudden our military becomes a weakling, the intelligence gathering mechanism becomes completely porous, as if Nigeria, like you stated, is failing. But the thing is this, by the time you say every citizen should up arms to defend themselves, then has the Nigerian government failed in its constitutional responsibility? Because Section 14p stipulates that the welfare and the security of the people shall be the primary purpose of government, without which it loses its legitimacy. So are we saying that Nigeria has failed as a nation state, so that it is now the responsibility of citizens to either defend themselves or they die?
When you say the government here, which of the government are you referring
I'm talking about, when I'm talking about the government, of course I'm talking about the federal government. Okay.
You don't think that the state government has...
No, it does. It does. But the point is this. The state governor, for instance, does not appoint the commissioner of police. He does not give orders to the IG. The instructions flow from top to bottom.
Top to the bottom. Okay, let's look at this. I'd like us to look at this practically. Would you say that the people of the Middle Belt are aware of the perpetrators of these acts?
Yes.
That's one.
Yes.
I'd like you to answer that. Secondly,
yes.
There are concerns that this fight is not just about Islamatizing, in quotes, you know, the Middle Belt and so on. It's also about mineral resources. So where do you stand with this conversation? Are you saying that it's a case of, you know, putting an Islamic state, that's why we're having this, because that's what you've said?
Yeah.
Or is it a case of, oh, there's a lot of natural resources, minerals, that needs to be claimed. That's why when they chase them out of the place, they have a territory there, and they show that they own that space. So let me break the question down to you. Do they know the perpetrators? Secondly,
yes.
Is it a fight of being an Islamic state, or it's a fight of mineral resources?
Number one, let me correct okay, first and foremost, to answer the first question, we know who these attackers are, and it is principally and fundamentally the Fulani terrorists that are wreaking havoc on our land. And secondly, there is no any fight. It's a genocide. Because these are innocent, peace-loving, armless citizens in their homes that are being butchered, being gruesomely murdered, and we have mass graves all over the length and breadth of the Middle Belt. That is a testament to what? The bloodletting and how they have turned the serene atmosphere into a theater of bloodshed. Now, how could you be in your own home? You are attending even a funeral, and armed assailants come riding motorcycles, and then they kill children, ripped up, pregnant women, children that are just maybe 2 or 3 years, still sucking their mother's breast, are torn into shreds. We have old parents who can barely even walk, being macheted, butchered as if they are even less than animals. How do you call that a fight? And in any case, if there is going to be a clash between you and I, then there should be casualties on both sides. But in this case, you come into a community, for instance. Imagine the Christmas Eve attacks that happened on the plateau in Mangu. Over 400 people died. Not even one of the assailants was apprehended. At the end of the day, not even one arrest has been made till this moment that we're talking about. Not even one arrest. I've granted an interview on Arise TV, and I gave a geographical location of the base from which these attacks are being orchestrated.
So is it far from where the people live, or have they put up a settlement?
There is a place called Mahanga, which lies at the valley bordering Bokos in Plateau State and Wamba in Nassau State to the south.
Is there any security garrison or security presence?
The point is, it is a community it is a community from which it is an autonomous community that it's inhabited by the Fulani, and it's there these attacks are being launched. And this has actually, the security agencies are aware.
That was going to be my
question. They do. Yeah. Because I've granted an interview on Arise TV, and I mentioned this. Nobody has come out to debunk that. And it is a fact. Aeroplanes are helicopters even land there. To give arms.
Who do you think? I mean, it's one thing for us to mention a few persons, but we'd like us to be specific, because of course this is national TV. Yeah. Whatever statement is made is coming from what you know. Yeah. So who do you think are operating these helicopters? Who do you think are supporting these assailants? Who do you think is supporting what you call, quote unquote, re-echoing the words of the Plateau State governor, a genocide? Who do you think is behind all of this?
President Goodluck Jonathan, during his time as president, alluded to the fact that there are Boko Haram sympathizers, those who are funding Boko Haram in his cabinet. Commander Olaomi has come out on several media broadcasts, and he has stated that over 300 names of financiers of terror in Nigeria has been submitted to the federal government. Up till today, have they been able to name one? And the point is this: when I mention that there is a surreptitious and a grand design to establish an Islamic state, it's a very pregnant statement. It's just that there's no time to go into the nitty-gritty of that. But all of them know what we're talking about. So the thing is this: there is complicity by the state. And that is why I told you that those who have been indoctrinated into that philosophy or that ideology, it is either they use the instruments of state to facilitate that agenda, or they cripple or undermine it. For instance, imagine there are instances, an attack, for instance, the Christmas Eve attack that happened on the plateau. About 37 distress calls was received by the Joint Task Force operation. 37 distress calls that was received by the Operation Safe Haven or the Joint Task Force. Yet nobody ever responded to that until this attack lasted for over 12 hours. And how many people were killed? Over 200 people were killed. And at the end of the day, it was after the killing spree, all the attackers have all left. That is when security arrives. They are working they are complicit.
No, but Doctor, we've had change of personnel.
Yes.
Chief of Army, Navy, Air Staff. We've also had change of government. So are you saying regardless of who the headman, who's in charge, this agenda will still happen? Because we've been seeing these attacks. They've not abated since the time of President Goodluck Jonathan to the 8 years of the Buhari presidency. We're seeing it now. So change of personnel doesn't change the situation on the ground.
Violence has always been the last option for state capture. And why do you think the North always comes to the table with violence whenever it wants power? It's because, for instance, we have a government, a southern president. But who put him there? On whose back did he ride to become president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? So the point is this. He who pays the piper dictates the tune. And to be very, very honest, the lack of political will you see manifest in almost all strata of governance in this state is simply because of the fact that they are part and parcel of the evil at one point or the other.
I want to take you back on a statement you made just a short while ago, saying the North always rides to power at the back of violence. I think that's a very strong statement.
Yes.
And the North is not one monolithic block that you could classify as one. There are Christians in the North, there are minority groups and all of that. So what evidence do you have to say Nigeria contested elections? People voted in different parts of the country that they rode on the back of violence. When President Buhari became president, people voted in Osun, in Ekiti, in different parts of it, in Calabar, for him. So I want you to
react to that.
When I talk of the North, I'm talking about the oligarchic North. First and foremost, I needed to have established this. The Middle Belt region, it's a conglomeration of independent ethnic nationalities that are independent of the rulership of the Sokoto Caliphate or the Sultanate of Borno when the British came in 1900. So when I'm talking of a Middle Belt, I'm talking of Southern Kebbi, I'm talking about Southern Borno, I'm talking about Southern Yobe, talking about Southern Bauchi, talking about Southern Kaduna, talking about Gombe, I'm talking about Plateau, I'm talking about Benue, I'm talking about Taraba, I'm talking about Nasarawa, I'm talking about the FCT, I'm talking about Kogi, I'm talking about Kwara, I'm talking about Niger. Now, these are the states that make up the Middle Belt. So when I'm talking about the North, I'm talking about the oligarchic North. So the oligarchic North I'm referring to is composed of two major proponents. That's the Sultanate of Borno and the Sokoto Caliphate, which is principally or primarily made up of the Fulani and the Kanuri. Now, I want you to understand that when we talk of the North coming to the table for negotiation using violence, I am not a prophet of doom, but in the build-up to the 2027 election, you're going to see more of these attacks, and they are going to focus more in the Middle Belt. I'm not a prophet of doom, but it's something I know.
And this is something that you're not the only one who has expressed.
And government would always look away.
We've had several guests on this show. Yeah. Last week, I believe we had Mr. Onekachi Adekoya, who was very keen on the fact that the bulk of the blame does not stop at the foot of the president, that we're all very quick to shout, President, President, he's the chief security officer, but asking what have the governors of these states done to secure their people. We see other states where they put together some security apparatus to ensure that, yes, it's not the official one, but they can look after. We've seen Ebubedike, we've seen Amotekun, and so the question is, do the governors have a role to play in all of this, or can we entirely just have to rest everything at the foot of the president? What role do the governors have to play in this?
They have a very, very strategic role and a fundamental role that has actually even been entrusted on them by the Constitution. As the governor of a state, you're the chief security officer of that state, and that's why you're giving security votes. And the security vote is supposed to go into what? Assisting the security apparatus to what? build a security architecture that is formidable to at least, first and foremost, even gather intelligence and then be proactive rather than reactive to all the madness we see. However, it still boils down to the political maneuvering and the configuration of the state. For instance, while we're burying over 200 of our citizens on the plateau, from Bokos to Bassa, we're now shocked with government coming to talk of investigating the poisoning of 30 cows. I believe you've read all of those commentaries. Now, how does the life of 30 cows equals or even supersedes that of 200 lives? Have we ever heard, even in Benue State, sorry to say this, because we have to be we have to be unapologetic about the truth. Because this country has been built on a lot of lies, and the fact is this, those lies have expired. The governor of Benue State is even to a large extent trying to, euphemize and reduce the magnitude of the tragedy that has been unleashed on innocent people in Benue State, trying to make it look like it's a skirmishes, some little disagreement between farmers and herders. Meanwhile, this is genocide, even reducing the numbers deliberately. So the point is this: when governors do not rise to the occasion and face it with the boldness that it requires, then something is wrong. And one thing I want you to understand is this: the domination and the overbearing influence of the northern oligarchy on even governors within the Middle Belt, to a large extent, undermines their capacity to face the lethal threat that these armless and defenseless citizens of their states are going through. Because the thing is this: how will I, ordinarily as a governor, be burying 400 people? This week I buried 200, the next week I bury 100. And yet I would be talking about the fact that criminality has no ethnicity.
But it's been happening for years, number of years. Now, if you could paint a picture of what needs to stop the senseless killings and this cycle of violence, what will it take, and what type of picture would you paint for us?
Number one, Nigeria as a nation has almost become more of a contraption where leaders have never embarked on a march to really make this a nation. A nation is a conglomeration of people who are bound by a common interest and a shared destiny. So whatever they do, either in their public or private lives, is tilted towards the actualization or arriving that destination. For instance, look at America. What is the ethic of the American society? Liberty. For instance, liberty, freedom, all these encapsulate the ethos of the American society. Everybody wants to be free. Everybody wants to be able to pursue happiness. Everybody wants to what? Be able to have, just like Barack Obama could, from Kenya, be having an African ancestry, get to be president of the United States. That is a nation that is founded on liberty, on freedom, on equality, on justice and equity. However, do we have any common ethic that unites us as a nation? And the thing is this: as long as this nation, as long as this country...
I want you to get to my...
I am getting there right now. As long as we continue just as
we're doing now?
No. The point is not just as we're doing now, because one, we just actually marched together. We didn't decide
describe Nigeria
as a major geographical expression. Yeah. Even Ahmadu Bello described it as a mistake of 1914, because as far as is concerned, the amalgamation dislocated the North from its past, proud Islamic past. And beyond this, I want you to understand that certain foundational fault lines that we hardly would want to engage because of political correctness, I'm still answering your question, is the fact that the Emirate system, which gave the British the bushel with which to house indirect rule, was actually nurtured to be the vehicle that will drive Nigeria upon achieving independence in 1960. So the point is this, as far as Nigeria is concerned, we are not a nation that has a common destiny. So the point is this, if we're a nation that has a common destiny, you, a Yoruba man in the southwest, would be concerned about anything that happens to any Nigerian, not minding the creed.
I mean, a lot of Nigerians.
Not minding the creed, the religion, whether the person is black, he's white, no matter how he looks like. But the point is this, when anything happens in the southeast, and I say, oh, it's the Igbos, let them deal with it. Anything happens in the west, oh, it's the Yorubas, let them deal with it. Anything happens in the middle, it's their own problem, let them deal with it.
Unfortunately, the last elections did show how very divided we are on ethnic lines. Dr. Stanley Kawam, thank you very much for your time. We have to quickly go on a break, and when we come back, Breakfast Central still continues. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're now going to review the newspaper front pages, and joining us is Public Affairs Analyst Dotun Ojon. Good morning, Mr. Ojon. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, yeah.
Let's now get straight into the papers and start with the Punch newspaper. On the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning, the big story, defections. PDP calls emergency meeting to halt Hurricane Tinubu. People don't have fuel. Nigeria not drifting to one-party state, presidency says. APC welcomes Oborewori and others today. NDLEA seizes 1 billion naira worth of drugs in 80-room hotel raid. Heritage Bank NDIC begins 46.6 billion naira payout to top depositors. Fitch upgrades Lagos, Kaduna, 2 other states' investment ratings. And Ondo doctor, others face charges over abortion for 10-year-old victim. Federal government targets 70% local pharmaceutical production. U.S. report calls out Nigeria's trade barriers, port corruption. I think that's all on the front page of the Punch newspaper. But let's begin with, I think we've overflogged this story really. But let's still get
what story is that?
The big story on the Punch newspaper. Yes, the defection. I feel like we've overflogged the story, but I think it's important to still have it. It's a conversation we had today. The presidency says we're not drifting to a one-party state. Do you believe them, Dr. Ojo?
Good morning and happy Monday. It's not about what I believe or not. The reality that is hitting everyone. Politics is about strategy. So if your opponent fails to get their own strategy right, you can take advantage of them. For example, Tinubu would not have been the president today if PDP had got his strategy right. Tinubu would not have become president today if opposition generally had an alignment and agreement before the 2023 election. For example, if in politics, if you want to win election, your personal feeling may not matter. For example, you saw a governor, a sitting governor, Wike was a sitting governor, who had about 4 or 5 other people supporting him, the G5 governors. And he was heavily interested in becoming the vice president of the party. And if really you wanted to win election, you would not have picked another person. I'm talking from the point of strategy, and it's not from the point of whether I love him or not. And even before then, the PDP lacked the boldness to come out straight to say, after an 8-year tenure of a Buhari, a northerner should not be the flag bearer of the party. So since they lacked that courage to actually to do what was right at that point in time, I think that they do not have the character now to begin to think that the president wants to make the state a one-party state. So a lot of people rely heavily on the PDP to be able to provide opposition because, of course, they were the biggest party. In fact, at a point, PDP was boasting that they were going to rule Nigeria for 51 years. I still had that report. So all of these things that the president is now doing permit me to say that it's a product of the lack of strategy of PDP. And it doesn't mean that people like us will totally support a situation where everyone is running to the same party. But again, like I've given a political prophecy, after 2027 election, everything will scatter within the APC.
The ship will implode.
After 2027 election, everything will scatter within the APC.
Now let's take a look at the Daily Independent newspaper. Tinubu not weakening opposition, nor dismantling democracy. Dotun says the opposition also needs to put his house in order. Stakeholders canvass support for whilst customize exams. And new EU rules. Nigeria may lose $20 billion cocoa revenue in 3 years. Experts charge FG on more concrete and consistent action. Sir, they're in the news again, but good news for Nigerian politicians is they're not suing them. They're looking overseas this time. Serap asked Zuckerberg and Meta to pay $220 million fine or face legal action. It would be nice to get details of that in the Daily Independent. NDLEA raid. Lagos Hotel recovers 1.042 billion naira illicit drug consignments. Who are the people taking these drugs? Every other week, there's a major NDLEA boss. Do we have a drug problem in Nigeria? Crowds flock to tomb of Pope Francis as eyes turn to conclave. They are looking at electing a new pope next month. Fitch upgrades Lagos, 3 other states to stable, and visa restrictions to UAE cut passenger traffic on Emirates Airlines. Economy seat drops by 50%, says travel experts. Why is it that Dubai is making travel for Nigerians very difficult? What's the problem? Okay, so I believe what story is of interest here? Yeah, let's talk about the drug problem.
Okay, so thank you so much for, because
and there's also a proposal that they want to start doing drug tests for youth couples and intending couples.
And couples.
Yeah, so the intention...
So they will reduce domestic violence.
Yeah, the intention of that really is to ensure that they are able to give proper counseling. That does not mean that if you test positive as an intended youth corps member that you will not serve. But it's to give the direction of counseling at the end of the day. If you enter the NYSC for 1 year, and if you've had history of drug abuse, they know the direction of counseling that would be. But again, as a person who is
How about the aspect of intending couples?
Of course, so that they can reduce. Do you think it's normal for people to be breaking their head? But see, the distance between...
There are different issues there.
No, the distance between I love you and I'm going to kill you is too short for the government to just keep quiet.
So it's drugs that you think is part of the
Of course, it's part of it. See, there's this story you just read now on the front page of The Punch talking about a medical doctor going to prison because of an abuse of abortion. Do you know that story? I don't think that any normal person should have gone through, should have done what was done. A father abused the daughter, and apart from the stepfather also abused the daughter. So some of these things sometimes you get concerned. And if you are a heavy traveler across Nigeria, when you get to hotels, just see the number of our young people that are taking drugs. Even in some cases, you even see that it is well written there that this place is, what's it called?
No
smoking and all of that. And you still continue to see all of this every moment. So I think it's really sad.
Well, it's become so prevalent these days. Growing up, it was a rare sight. And people had that fear that, when you hear drugs. But now it's so, if you look at our pop culture, artists that have multi-million-dollar endorsements are smoking, they are doing all sorts of things. Why do we... Is it that the laws are lax, or why are we not focusing on this drug issue? We're not giving it the much needed attention.
Unfortunately, I think, what's it called? I think Asha asked the question in one of our songs that who is responsible for what we teach our children? Is it the internet or the stars on television? I think the 21st century person now, the kind of exposure he has is seeing people puff smoke on television, and it's almost becoming a culture. And these are the people that they pattern their lives after.
If you go to any university, sorry to interrupt, if you go to any university hall, the TV room, or what's it called, common room, you will hardly see the station on a news station they are watching people dancing. It's always musical.
Everywhere you turn to.
And football.
And that's why I keep saying it. I say, one of the problems we have with governance in Nigeria is that once you get to any community where there are 20-year-olds are more interested in premiership and stars on television, 80-year-olds will continue to rule them. Because they just stay glued. They think that's the most important thing.
Liverpool won the game.
But the truth is that how you are governed, it has come to public discourse often that how you are governed is more important than any aspect of your life. Because voting for government is like giving them the direction of your own destiny for the period that they rule over you. They are going to make policies that will affect you. They are going to make decisions that will affect you. So these are important conversations that I think we should continue to drive on television. Beyond going to school, there must be a deliberate effort to provide mentorship for people, for young people in Nigerian universities and outside of it.
Very interesting. Let's also look at, another story this time. I think I'd like to go back to the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune says 50 billion naira earned allowance. We didn't rely on money released on paper, according to ASU. This ASU issue is still back again. Remember that just last week there was jubilation. Everyone was celebrating that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had approved for the Minister of Education to go ahead and implement a 50 billion naira allowance to ensure that he solves the educational crisis, the backlog payments, and ensure that going forward, there will be no more strike. But now ASU is coming out to say that they will not rely on a mere statement that is made.
They want to see alert
on papers. They want to receive the alert.
That is what.
But hold your thoughts, Dr. Before we go, before you answer that question, we have to go on a quick commercial break, and when we come back, Breakfast Central continues. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're currently reviewing the newspaper headlines, and we have with us Mr. Dr. John, a public affairs analyst. Before we went on that break, Joe asked you a question about ASU. If you're a member of ASU, you should be very happy because the federal government has promised that, backlog of some monies will be released to them. And if they were planning to go on strike, I'm sure they will shelve it for now, saying that their prayers have been answered.
Okay, so there are two issues, you understand. If you understand how government works, the distance between promise and reality is always very, very long. And we cite the example of the youth corps members who were promised that they were going to get the minimum wage, and they were hoping and hoping and hoping. The fact that it got delayed did not mean that the government did not intend to do it. But of course, efficiency is the question. There's always been a problem of efficiency in government and bureaucracy. And inefficiency actually runs our own kind of bureaucracy in Nigeria, where somebody will put a file on your table and the file is going to stay there for a month before somebody attends to it. So I just, the doubt that ASU is expressing is a product of their past experiences. But like I used to advocate, let's try to give a second chance. There's always a second chance. Let's give ourselves the ability to believe a second time. So I believe that the president has given the directive that he's going to follow through with it. But again, to be the president of Nigeria is always very cumbersome. Not because the president is doing a lot in terms of governance, but because the president is doing a lot in terms of politics. Usually, instead of concentrating on governance, the executive always thinks about the next election, and that always takes most of their time. But I believe that with this new directive, we've been on this since 2009, back and forth, and running into 15 years or more. So I believe that this is actually going to put a definite end, a productive end, a beneficial end to it, and ASU will be able to go back to classes without the fear of going on strike.
Well, that's one thing for them to have that fear. Another thing for them to also worry if this would happen. But I also like us to quickly look at this particular story as well. We've talked about inflation, which happens to be a major challenge. just this weekend, we did see the CBN governor come out to say that, of course, they're looking at a single-digit inflation. Yes, of course, to ensure that they control the inflation. Not forgetting to, you also had the international, arm of companies who are worried. There are people, there are investors who have invested in the Lagos-Calabar, highway road, who have put out a video and say Nigerians should be wary, other countries should be wary of investing in Nigeria. And then, of course, you have the CBN governor saying they're trying to fight inflation. You also have the case of saying more investors are coming in. What do you make of the differences in communication that we're starting to have regarding Nigeria's economy? First, it's growing, it's becoming strong. On the other aspect, you have people who have invested in it already, who are crying foul and complaining. And then, of course, you have also, not forgetting, Fitch upgrades a few states as well.
Yes, from B minus to B. And that's as a result of what they call the stability that we've begun to see in the economy. I think majorly, the major problem we have is that philosophically, how you do one thing is how you do all things. Our anyhowness is a major problem across board in government. What do I mean by anyhowness? It's we just do things without a proper plan. And in times that we even have plan, you discover that some of these plans are not well thought out. So when you talk about the economy, for example, if this one is saying that we haven't seen the product of the economy, there must be a way that the government will manage all of these differences. And I think for today, the first beneficiary of all the effort of government in reviving our economy is the government itself. Because government has been able to get more money in the process of this economic reformation. But the investors have not been able to get money. For instance, I said it here last week that states that were earning as low as 6 billion, 5 billion, they're now taking as high as 12 billion, 14 billion. So government as it is now has more money. And that is why government will continue to talk in reality to the figure that benefits them. But again, you must know that the democracy is about balancing the figure you have and the feeling of the people. All the policies that you have made, you must be able to align the figure, the productive figure, with the reality of the feeling of the people. So as we have it now, I believe that the economy is now bigger than it used to be in terms of figure, but not in terms of value. Because 1 billion naira of 2022 is not the same as today. So when you compare in terms of value, we may not be doing as well as government has said we are doing. But in terms of figure, of how much we now have, then we are doing more. Now, it's not the duty of government to balance this with the feeling of the people, of what the people are going through.
I mean, that's a good way to explain it if you look at it, because, the figures might seem so,
Yeah, but you have to factor in inflation.
Big and all that. But by the time you put it on paper, it's just like what someone once said. This was just yesterday or the day before. And he said 100,000 naira now is the new 30,000 naira. It's the new 30,000 naira. And that's true. By the time you walk into a supermarket and you buy one or two things and then they tell you your bill is 60,000, you're like, what did I buy? You don't have enough nylon to prove that you bought a lot. So I think I agree with that part. Binga.
Yeah, just before we go, can we go back to the headline of the Tribune? And it's something that's been in the public discourse for a while. Tinubu's making government efforts to dismantle democratic foundations. Odinkalu, Ojudu, and 15 others won. Is this a case
there was an X yesterday on this.
Yes.
They spoke on X yesterday.
A
space, and they discussed this particular topic
It was very, very, I mean, people are wondering that, look at President Tinubu with his NADECO credentials is stifling opposition voices. They're saying he doesn't tolerate dissent and we're drifting towards a one-party state. Are these alarmist, or are there signs that, we might be really drifting towards a democratic sort of dictatorship at the same time?
Apart from what happened in Rivers, I have not seen...
I mean, the protest also. Yes,
apart from the state of emergency that was declared for Rivers, in fairness, I have not seen anything that the president has done that has suggested that that he wants to actually install himself or anything. But again, we must know, and this is what I opened with, that politics is about strategy. All of these people that are talking now, just call them to a meeting today and say, let us agree to present a formidable candidate that will wrestle power from this government. Everybody will go their separate way. So as long as politics is about strategy, politics is about alignment and agreement. What the people that are decamping today, what they are doing is self-sustenance. Because Nigeria kind of politics is for you to win the next election. And that is why governance is always on break 2 years into any given administration. Anything that they do within these 2 years now is what you should expect for the 4-year term. Before you will see anything, it's maybe 2027
but
or after 2027.
They commission projects and use it as campaign material. So if they're not working, where are these projects?
So it doesn't, when you talk about working does not stand alone in politics. You bring the budget, then you can show your workings. Because you cannot execute budget 20% or 30% and say, oh, because you are inaugurating project. No, the reality of your budget, does it match with the reality of what you are commissioning?
And what you've delivered.
So before you can say a government has performed excellently well, we should be looking at 70, 80, and 90% completion of your budget. Your budget is your destiny direction for any particular year. So, and that's very important. And going back to this issue of the fear that people have, I was saying it the other time that PDP will have, I don't know whether, I'm not even sure whether they can do up to what APC is doing now, I don't think. But PDP will have saved a lot of people. There was no how President Tinubu will have become president if PDP had done what is right. And what was right at that point, people were, I take responsibility for this, people were sharing money. They were sharing dollar for the primary election to ensure that somebody gets the ticket of the party. If they were selfless and they have looked away from the temptation of the dollars and they have picked the right candidate and united their party, then they will have given the APC, nobody will have gone out. See, nobody will have gone out to vote APC after President Buhari left. If they had done the right thing, the economy...
I guess it was one man's ambition that put them in.
It's not, with the agreement of people. See, and that's why it is very easy to blame politicians. I was thinking this morning, if you look at an average Nigerian politician, there's no how, if they do not have the fear of God extra, there's no how they will be able to deliver for the Nigerian people. What do I mean? There's a process of installation that is extremely faulty in Nigeria. There's no family in Nigeria today where you don't have one useless guy who goes out to collect money during election. And I'm telling you the truth. That's why, and until we get to a point where everybody, maybe you carry one big stick and you go to your family house and you say, this election, we want to, if anybody goes out to collect money, we will be the person openly. These useless people are the one that dictate the destiny direction of everyone in the nation for additional 4 years. And there's no one, I say it again, and I take responsibility for this, who will pass through this system. Do you know how much people spend on election? And they become whatever they become, and you are still talking to them as if they owe you anything. And in their head, they are thinking, no, I already paid for it.
Yeah, I gave you bread.
And yes, and you are saying, you are saying that, no, I didn't collect money.
Spaghetti.
But your family had a representative. My family had a representative in the entire political shenanigans that goes on in the country. So these are some of the, and until we get to a point where, and if this hard time does not teach us lesson, there's nothing again that will teach us political lesson. Until we get to a point where all of us align that it is, government is the most important aspect of our life, and we agree to install credible leaders. A lot of us go out there and say, oh, even if I vote, it does not count. That is rubbish. It does. Who could have known that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, former governor of Lagos State, Kingmaker in Lagos, will lose election in Lagos State? It was because people came out and they voted. And there's when people will vote that rigging becomes impossible. How do you want to match the number? When somebody has beaten you with 40% or 50% of the entire vote cast, there's no magic in it. So people must realize that every election gives an opportunity for every one of us to rewrite our destiny direction. But you know where the problem is? At every election, our brain seems to go on recess. We only begin to think after we might have elected wrong people into political positions.
So I guess that's where the education comes. We have 2 years to tell people not to collect money, and hopefully we get things right next time out in 2027. Thank you,
so
Dr.
much,
Ojo. Always an absolute pleasure to hear
It's
your
a pleasure
insights
to have you, to be
on
here.
these issues. Now, we'll go on a quick break, and when we return, it will be time for Which Way, Nigeria? So this is how it works now. You're under investigation for billions missing. Simple solution. Defect to the ruling party and like magic, your sins are forgiven. Look at Ifeanyi Okowa, former Delta State governor. Less than 2 years ago, he was flying the PDP's vice presidential flag as their vice presidential candidate. Today, he and the entire PDP structure have defected to the APC. And just when the EFCC started asking questions about the missing 1.3 trillion naira and that shady 40 billion LNG investment. Convenient, isn't it? And it's not alone. Remember Godswill Akpabio, the EFCC was all over him, over 100 billion naira missing in Akwa Ibom. Next thing, he joined the APC, and now he's not just free, he's the Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Ojuzo Kalu was convicted of fraud to the tune of 7.56 billion naira and sentenced to 12 years imprisonment. Not acquitted, just released on a technical error. Today, he sits comfortably in the Senate. The formula is simple. Still big, defect fast, shine brighter. Remember Stella Odua, accused of laundering 5 billion naira. When it was time to face the court, she joined the APC. Later, when elections came, she quietly returned to the PDP like nothing happened. What about Musili Obanikoro, confessed to election funds fraud? Joined the ruling party, now his cases are dragging or simply disappearing. Peter Nwaboshi, acquitted, convicted, acquitted again. And in between, oh yes, he also defected. And Emmanuel Bwacha, former Senate Minority Leader, suddenly decided to cross over to the timing, suspicious at best. But let's call it what it is. Defection in Nigeria today is absolutely not about ideology. It's not about serving the people. It's about self-preservation. It's about evading justice. And we, the people, are just left clapping for them while the real issues like healthcare, education, roads, security are abandoned. If switching political parties is now the fastest way to clean your criminal record, if loyalty is no longer to Nigeria, but to whoever can offer protection, then I ask again, which way Nigeria? Really, which way? Good morning, Nigerians.